Today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Marcus Scott. He's not your average trooper. This story is a story of resilience, setbacks, comebacks, and doing it the hard way. From rec gyms to college championships to pro basketball, Marcus has seen every corner of the game, and today he's here to tell it all. So, Marcus, when's the first time you remember falling in love with a game?
Well, the first time I remember falling in love with the game probably would have to be probably when I finished middle school, just deciding whether I was going to do football and basketball. When I decided that I would skip out on football just to play basketball, I felt like that probably was the moment that I fell in love with the game, simply because football was kind of my best sport growing up. Growing up in Little League, I would always score touchdowns, especially in flag football, even up to, getting to the beginning of tackle with pads. But I feel like that was definitely the moment where I chose, like, hey, I fell in love with basketball because giving up something that I thought I was a little better at just because of the passion of basketball, that's something that I was like, hey, I'm really liking this basketball stuff. I'm going to take it serious. So at middle school, going into high school, because I feel like when I got into high school, since football season was before basketball season, I didn't want to get injured playing football the season before basketball. So I said, I'm going to just not even take the chance and just focus on basketball in my high school career.
And who planted the idea that basketball could be in your future?
I would definitely say my father planted that idea in me. He's been somebody that's always been in my corner. He's been believing in me, and just with the stuff that we would do growing up and just being around my other teammates and friends, seeing the success we had, I feel like that just instilled a belief in myself as well. So I say probably he was probably one of the first people, but I just started believing in myself.
And for those who only know the athlete Marcus Scott, who's Marcus Scott off the court?
Off the court, I would say a very competitive guy, even if it's not just athletics. I would say I'm kind of chill. I like to go bowling, just hang around, but really just about academics as well. I mean, when I think about off the court, it's not really much I do. It's like during the week it would be school and then get out play basketball. So, and then on the weekend, I'm a family guy, definitely a family guy. So high on family, like to be with my family. So that's how I would describe me off the court.
Let's talk a little about Little League, rec ball, and AAU. What were your early basketball days like?
Early basketball days started with, I'd say, as early as third grade to fourth grade. I can remember sitting at the house with my dad, and we came up with the AAU team. So AAU team was called Scott's All Stars. Like it's based off of our last name, but it was our foundation, and that's kind of how the earlier days went. We came up with the team. This was around the time when AAU wasn't popular, so my dad created that foundation for kids in our area, which is Hinesville, Georgia, and we had a team going together. So a couple of my friends and parents that he knew, they brought their kids to the team, and we started playing AAU. So that's how early childhood went for basketball.
And when did you realize that you were different talent wise?
When I realized I was different, probably would be when we got to middle school, because in middle school we played rec ball in Hinesville, Georgia. Basketball is really, really popular there. It's a lot of people in the community that support it. So it wasn't your average rec league. Championship games would be packed from side to side, and I don't think that's very regular in a lot of cities. So I'd say during that, because each year we would go undefeated until we got to the championship. But I just felt like, looking back and seeing that, hey, this is something that not a lot of people are doing. We went undefeated each year to the championship, and I was averaging like 30 points. So at that point, I was thinking, hey, this is not something that's normal. I think I'm a little different, so I take this serious.
What role did AAU play in your development, and how real was the competition?
Um, yeah, you played a vital role. Like I said, that was kind of the first team atmosphere I had, starting in third to fourth grade and building that bond with my teammates. I say it was very vital because, I mean, I got to travel a lot, expanded on life just off AAU, got closer with my dad. He was the coach. And then our first coach, Coach Darrell West, just learning from a different style with him. But yeah, the competition was very high. I mean, we traveled a lot of places. We even went as far as to Vegas. I remember I played in the Adidas Gauntlet, and we had a playoff game that it was a new team I was with. This was another team called Middle Georgia Raptors, but we had a game right before I think it might have been the Final Four game, and if we won that game, we would have played the famous Zion Williamson. So we lost that game by a buzzer beater. It was like a half court shot I had to make with like 2 seconds left and missed it. But that just shows like the competition of how high it was. If we won that game, we would have played Zion Williams. So just a lot of different competition, a lot of different stories, a lot of bonding with my guys that I really learned from that. And I mean, it shaped me to be the person I am.
Were there times that people doubted you?
Definitely say it was times that people doubted me simply because of my size. And that's just been something I always, tried to overcome and have been doing in my life. So definitely been times with that. Just believing in myself and believing in the work that I put in the gym and, you know, just seeing stuff work out for me. So that's just really what that is.
And if we had footage of your game from back then, what would we see? How do you stand out?
I mean, so basically, my dad, he recorded everything. So everything all the way to like, let's see, like maybe 2010, even 2008 is on YouTube. So my dad has that film on there. And I say, if you go look at it, I mean, you'll just see a young kid that, had a dream or still has the dream of playing in the league and, doing it with his friends, his family, his dad, coaching them sometimes. So just having fun. And he was dominating, especially in rec league. He was a good kid, working hard and, just having the confidence in himself.
And what can we search up to find this footage?
You could just search up, go to YouTube, type in Marcus Scott. You can really put Marcus Scott, class of 2018, and then that video will pop up of the rec league games and my rec league mixtape. And then if you go to that page that posted that clip, it'll say to Marcus Scott. That's my dad's YouTube page. And if you scroll down on his videos, you can go all the way down to 2008, and you'll be able to see all the videos there.
Now let's get into your high school journey. Break down your high school journey.
My high school journey. So my dad was the assistant principal at Jenkins High School. So I ended up going there. I stayed in Hinesville, but then since he was the assistant principal at Jenkins High School, I followed him to that school. It was pretty different going from Hinesville to Savannah. Savannah is a little more, sometimes they'll say it's a little dangerous area, but it was a pretty cool experience. I got to learn from a lot of different people, especially in the basketball world. We actually won the state championship that year, and our state championship game, the point guard that was playing over me, I think it was his senior year. It might have been senior or junior, but he was a senior year guard, real good guard that I learned from. He actually hit the buzzer beater for us to win our state championship game. So I was able to get a ring my freshman year of high school, which was a great feeling. Played against good competition. One of my favorite guards to this point, Altery Gilbert. He played for Miller Grove, which was a powerhouse growing up in Georgia and still is. I mean, they won probably like 10 state championships under their coach Sherman. So actually, I remember freshman year I got in and I played against him. And I can remember the moment right now. One of my teammates, Nick, he had passed me the ball in the corner. I was probably like, I might have been like 5'1", out there with a lot of taller, older guys. And I remember he passed the ball to me in the corner and all the guys just trapped me. And coach was like, hey, don't get a ball to the freshman in the corner. It was just funny. But, I played a lot of good competition. And like I said, going to the state championship and seeing that experience and learning from, the older guys that was on that team. We had a lot of good people. Malik Ben Levy, he's a pro. Travion Lamar had a good year. So it just was a good experience.
And were you always a leader, or did you develop that role over time?
I would say I developed that role over time. When I was growing up in the AAU days, I was definitely looked at as a leader among my peers on that team. But when I got to high school, like I said, that freshman year, I was kind of a little quiet, a little small guy. So I kind of looked at the others for leadership. But I'd say right around junior year, a little bit in the sophomore year, but really junior year is really when I cemented that leadership role, and whatever team I went to, just was always that leader. So kind of grew into it, didn't really start with it.
And do you ever feel like you were overlooked in high school?
Um, no, I don't feel like I was overlooked simply because I did end up getting a D1 scholarship. Now, if I didn't get a D1 scholarship, I definitely would have felt that I was overlooked. But staying patient and ended up getting a D1 scholarship at 5'8", in Brunswick High School, I feel like that definitely was like, okay, I'm not being overlooked. There's people actually out there looking for the right talent, and they found me, and they gave me a chance, put a chance on a 5'8", probably 150-pound guy in high school. So when I reached that call and got that, I was like, okay, I don't feel like I'm overlooked. My hard work is paying off.
What was your coldest moment in high school? The game everyone still talks about today.
My coldest moment in high school, I would probably say, would be the Elite Eight game winner at Brunswick High School. So after my freshman year, I transferred to Brunswick High School, and Brunswick High School is where I finished my high school career. So basically, the coldest moment would have to be that junior year. So we went back to the state championship my junior year, and also when I left Savannah Jenkins my freshman year because my dad, he had switched jobs. He wasn't there no more. So my stepmom at the time, she ended up working as the counselor at Brunswick High School. So I moved to Brunswick High School, and that's where I ended up playing. And I gained a lot of moments from there. Like you said with your question, my junior year, we went back to the state championship, and that was actually a really good goal of mine because I can remember going to the championship my freshman year and just looking at the atmosphere we had. And I remember telling myself, this is something that I want to do on my own. I don't want to be carried by the seniors and stuff. I want to do this on my own. So I could just remember the day of the championship game, and I just thought to myself, I completed a goal that I wanted to do. I led my team that year. I had a pretty good, season, and we got to the championship. So throughout that championship run, I say the biggest moment was the Elite Eight game winner. It was a game winner for the Elite Eight, which we ended up going to championship that year. And it was just a big moment. It was one of our last home games of the season that year. And all the fans were on me. My teammates jumped on me when I hit the shot. So I feel like that was definitely a high moment. And a lot of guys that I know that went to the school that year, they still talk about it to this day.
You guarded Landers Nolley in the state championship. What do you remember about that moment?
Yeah, Landers Nolley. So for people that don't know, Landers Nolley, I think he's in the G League right now. He's a really, really good guard. He went to Virginia out of high school. And yeah, he's 6'8". So I'm 5'8". He's 6'8". So he got a whole foot on me. But I can remember going into the game. We had the legendary late, great David Boyd, who passed away. Condolences to him. But he was one of my greatest coaches ever. His game plan was, hey, we're going to run a boxing one, and we're going to put Marcus on the 6'8" Landers Nolley kid. So I remember the matchup, and, I did well. The first half was the only time we played the boxing one. The second half, we went to a zone. But the first half, I think we went into halftime probably down by like 3. So I was guarding them the whole first half. And I can remember just, being a young guy, taking on the challenge. There was a lot of people there. I wanted to show, hey, I can guard over taller people, no matter the size. So I just remember the matchup. I think I did pretty well. He probably hit maybe 2 or 3 jump shots that half. He didn't really go off until the second half. So when we got into the zone, so I think I did pretty good, and it showed scouts that, hey, this guy got heart to be able to guard a great talent like Landers Nolley.
You mentioned that you received the D1 offer. So let's get into your Air Force Prep Academy journey. How did the Air Force Prep opportunity come about?
So the Air Force prep opportunity. Basically, when I was in high school, my dad, he would have a template made that had a list of all the D1 and D2 schools, and they had their emails, their contact information, their phone numbers, and all of that. So he had took the initiative to email all of the schools on the list and he came up with some stuff with my stats and all my stuff, and he sent it to the coaches, and they were actually, I think, one of the only D1 schools, I think, out of like maybe 500, maybe 600. I don't know how many there is, but there's a lot. There was only one of the schools that hit me back, and they showed interest. And I can remember they came to watch me play one of my games. I did very well that game. And then I can remember when I think I was going to a friend's house. I was finna walk into their house, and I was in the driveway, and I was about to walk in. I got the call, and he told me he was offering me a scholarship. So that was just a pretty wholesome moment. Like I said, I appreciate my father for coming up with the template and sending out the email. But I definitely say for anybody that's out there watching, definitely that's just the type of commitment and stuff that you have to do. You can't just sit back and wait for an offer. If you got to take the initiative to come up with a list and email them every day, because like I said, he did it every day. I mean, sooner he would tell me about it, the later he did it. But when it first started, he kind of did it on his own. But he would tell me, hey, you need to send out these emails every single day. So it might be, 499 no's, but that one yes, made a 5'8" kid a D1, high school player. So appreciative of that, and that's really how it came about.
And what was life like there off the court, and how did it shape you?
So yeah, for people that don't know, the Air Force Academy is basically it's basically like Harvard type academics. I had to say this because a lot of people don't know this. Actually, when they think of the branches, they only hear the non-school part of the branches, but they don't know that there's the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, and then West Point. So those are different than your Army or your Air Force, not dealing with academics. So they actually have schools for those branches, and those schools are D1 schools. So all three of them are D1 schools. And like I said, the academics was like Harvard, like work. So off the court, I would say it was very stressful. That was the first time I ever even, learned what mental health was, because I learned a lot of stuff just being there. And like I said, mental health was one of the things that I learned. And just being in the military in general, like I never grew up, I never thought that I'd do anything with the military. Like that was literally my last thought to ever even join the military. But like I said, when I got the opportunity to play basketball there and just looking at all of the opportunities that being there, and if I did graduate from there comes with it, it was a no-brainer for me to go. But like I said, the academics part, just studying every night off the court, studying every night, waking up, doing PT. Like for the audience out there, you still do PT. We still had basic. We still had to wear a uniform every day. We had strict rules. So like I said, it's literally the same as the other non-academic or non-sports branches, but we did the same exact stuff. So we would wake up in the morning early. Probably a good day for us waking up would be 5 a.m. Like that's how crazy it sounds, but as we wake up as early as 4 every day. They'll bang on our doors. I mean, but like I said, looking back on all of that, I think it really shaped me to the person I am. Getting ahead. I mean, I had 3.8, 4.0 GPA at the schools I transferred to, and I really give that credit to my time at the Air Force Academy because, being honest, I didn't really study that much in high school. I had a high GPA, but I didn't really study that much. But the academics weren't as hard, obviously, as the Air Force Academy. So when I got to the Air Force Academy, I had to study. I'm thankful for a lot of my peers. Cadet Candidate Park, I remember you. If you're watching this, appreciate you. I used to stay up. We'd probably stay up till 12 a.m., 1 a.m. Have to wake up at 5 a.m. So we getting 4 hours of sleep. But he's sacrificing himself to help me study, so I could pass my tests. And that's really something that I learned a lot from there, just learning how to study, honestly. And then the military side, I would say, was building discipline in myself. I mean, waking up every morning, no choice but to get up, go march to the cafeteria and all of that stuff. I feel like it really structured me and prepared me to be more of a disciplined person. So when I got to freedom of other schools, it was kind of easy.
And what was your reason for leaving?
I would say my reason for leaving was because basically my goal has always been, even when I was little, was to play basketball professionally. So at the military, at the Air Force Academy, the way that it's structured there is, as far as their belief system, it's academics first, military second, and then sports will be last. So looking back on my days, I probably had about 20%, maybe 10% of my days were filled with basketball. So I felt myself getting, worse actually in basketball. But I mean, like I said, it has its, pros and cons. But for me personally, my goal was to play basketball. The Air Force Academy did have a great lineup for me if I wanted to graduate from there, but that wasn't my ultimate goal. So looking back on that, when I finished the year, I said, hey, I'll probably have to leave because my goal is to play basketball. And if I'm only getting 10% of basketball throughout my day, most of it is studying or doing some type of military work. This ain't really going to be the long term thing for me. But like I said, I believe in God and they put everything in myself, in my position for a reason. So what I gained from there is something that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't even go there, which is the discipline and my academic study habits.
Now let's walk through the rest of your college career, school by school. What made you choose Savannah State to continue your college career?
Choosing Savannah State really came because, the year that I went there, that was actually their first year going D2. I knew they were a high caliber program coming from D1. They still have all of their D1 facilities, their D1 coaches. So, and it was only an hour away from me. I lived in Hinesville, and Savannah's only an hour away. So, I felt like it was a good opportunity for me. Coach, I reached out to the coach. He was interested back. I actually grew up kind of with the coach. His son Trey Bronax. Me and him were very close growing up. I would always come to his house, and I remember we played 1-on-1 in his backyard plenty of times. So I had that relationship with the coach kind of prior before that, and when I got the opportunity to talk to him and he was interested, I said, hey, this would be a good spot. I'm not far from my house. Like I said, it's a D1 program going to D2, so I think I think highly of the program and thought it was a good spot. So that's how I ended up there.
What were the highlights of your time there?
My highlights, I would say, so freshman year was a pretty good year for me. I didn't have the average freshman year. I averaged like 16 to 17 points as a freshman, which was pretty good. Not a lot of freshmen are doing that. So I think that was a good highlight for my freshman year there. I actually was, going to consider entering the transfer portal, but I didn't because I had talked to my coach and, he kind of said to me, hey, if you enter that portal, I ain't gonna secure you or promise you that you're gonna have a scholarship back. So when I heard that, I was like, hey, I don't want to, end up in a position that I can't be in. I had a pretty good year here. I'll just stay here and stay with my city and stay with the team. So after the freshman year, I had a pretty good year. Like I said, 16 points. Came back from my sophomore year, and I still, like I said, had the goals that I wanted to have for myself. So winning championship in high school, going back to that championship, the junior year of my high school career was a goal that I completed. So I said, hey, I want to win a championship on every level. So whether that be high school, college, pro, I at least want to get a championship in every level. So going back my sophomore year, uh, well, actually the first sophomore year, that was COVID year. So that was 2020. We only played 3 games. So that really wasn't nothing. Came back for my official sophomore year, and that was the year that the season for us actually was it was very okay. I think we went like 13-14 for the regular season, and then we got into the playoffs. So before I get into the playoffs, I mean, on the opposite side of the market, the women's team, they actually set records that year. They won like, I think they was on like a 20-game winning streak. I think it was one of the longest winning streaks of Savannah State's women's athletics. So everybody was saying, hey, the women's are finna dominate in the playoffs, and nobody really had high expectations for the men's to do anything in the playoffs. So going into the playoffs, I remember one of the stories I don't know that's been told is, you know, I remember that last game we had of the regular season and we lost, and our coach sat us in the locker room, and we were in the locker room for about 2 hours after that loss before we went into the playoffs. And I remember Coach Bronax, he sat in front of the board in our locker room, and he had a notebook with him, and he said, "I'm gonna open this notebook, and we're gonna talk about all the things that you know we need to fix before we head into playoffs." Because he was basically saying, if we just gonna go up there and just lose and just not even give a effort, we don't even need to waste the trip. So he said he opened the notebook, and when he closes it, once he closes it, then all of our problems and anything we had going on is done. So we had the notebook open, and we literally had everybody sitting on their locker and went around the whole team. Everybody spoke their piece. Well, not really piece, but they spoke about the problems that they had with certain people. And I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, I had like maybe two or three guys that was pointing me out. So we was in there for quite a while. It was probably in there for like an hour and a half after that game talking about this stuff. But like I always tell people, I feel like that moment was very genius and brilliant by Coach Barnax because he came up with it. But for us to do that and then talk about it and then go into the playoffs and do what we did, I feel like if we didn't have that talk, we wouldn't have, did what we did, which was first time all season we won 4 games in a row. So we didn't win 4 games in a row that whole season, and going into the playoffs, we did win 4 games in a row. And I felt like we wouldn't have won those 4 games if it wasn't for that talk. So basically, we had to talk, guys. It was no fighting or nothing, but we did have some guys, talking back and forth and not disagreeing. But like I said, Coach was there to mediate, and at the end of the talk, we closed the book and we came together as a team and said, "Hey, we're gonna go into this and win." So after that talk, we went to the playoffs, and basically, like I said, we won 4 games in a row. We won the championship. I had a pretty good run. If it wasn't for that run, honestly, it would have been a very, mediocre year for me. But like I said, God has different plans for people. So I had a pretty good run. I think I averaged like maybe 18 in the playoffs that year. So I was able to get MVP honors for that, and we won the championship. So that was something that was high on my back. And that was pretty much my last time at Savannah State after that game, because we won, and I felt like I'm gonna take my game to the next level.
So, what were some other challenges that you faced while attending Savannah State?
Um, Really, honestly, I mean, off the court, I had a bond with a lot of people. I mean, like I said, I give very good thanks to the education department. Uh, Dr. Thompson, she always was there to help me. Shout out to the education department at Savannah State. It's a great program. Um, they definitely helped me out a lot throughout my whole time there. Um, I mean, just the dorms, just the campus life, everything was great off the court. Only issues I probably had was just a little bit on the court, which was, just, jealousy and just teammates, sometimes stuff happens and stuff. But like I said, those were just minor issues that we got through together and obviously won the championship. But even after the championship, I mean, it was some stuff came out, some crazy stuff. But those were probably the, only minor issues I had at Savannah State. But looking back, Savannah State really gave me nothing but good memories and stuff that I would cherish for life. So it was pretty good, actually. So I wouldn't say nothing bad.
And why did you ultimately decide to leave?
So ultimately, I decided to leave because, like I said, coming off my freshman year, I had a very unique freshman year. Not a lot of people had the freshman year that I have. Like being able to start even as a freshman is a high accomplishment. And then not only did I start, but I was like second in the running for freshman of the year. So, I mean, that just says how good the year I had. So, with that being said, I came back and then I followed it up with, going to the SIAC championship and winning SIAC MVP. So, with all that in mind, like I said, since I was little, my goal has been to play pro. So, I looked at the statistics and, most of the pro people played D1. So like I came D1 out of high school, but obviously I went to Savannah State. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to go back to D1. Um, and basically that's why I left Savannah State. I left trying to find a D1, and that's the only reason. Honestly, I mean everything besides that, Savannah State was a perfect option, but I just felt like for me to reach my goals, um, I'm looking at the D1 route, and I'm a represent Savannah State if I get that D1 spot.
And what drew you to Central State after leaving Savannah State?
Yeah, so basically, I kind of waited the process when I left Savannah State as far as just when to enter the portal. So I entered kind of late, only because I was trying to decide, hey, should I stay? Should I leave? Should I stay? And just I ended up, leaving. So basically, when I was at Savannah State, my coach he spoke very highly of me. He's on record of that championship game saying that he would bet his house mortgage on my jump shot. And I appreciate Coach Brian X for saying that. It's a high praise from coming from your coach. But with that being said, he really liked me as a shooter. And growing up in the world of basketball, I've always been a point guard. But he didn't really see me as a point guard. And like I said, I respected his opinion, stayed there, did what he wanted me to do. But in my opinion, I felt like if I wanted to be a pro with my height, I would have to play point guard to be a pro. And he kind of told me straight up one time in practice, like, hey, you're not gonna play point for me. I want you to shoot the ball. I want you to be a shooter. And a lot of people they when I tell them this, they look at me and say, hey, you know, dang, you mad at the coach because he wants you to score, but that just show like how unselfish I am because it's not about me trying to score. I mean, that's just how I've been growing up. I want to be a point guard. That's how I've been raised. That's just how I kind of play on my own. I don't really look to score as much. People tell me I should, but I like to pass. So with that being said, um, I basically said that I needed to play point, and I wanted to find a school that would give me the opportunity to play point guard. And Central State was HBCU in Ohio. Actually, was in the same conference as Savannah State, and like I said, I was late in kind of the recruitment. I waited kind of late, but they were HBCU, and they still were able to fly me out for a visit. The coaches was there. Coach Davis, he was a great personality. I really clicked with him when I first met him. I thought he was a very professional guy, and I liked how he presented himself. So I said, hey, I'm going to try Savannah State. I told him why I was leaving Savannah State, and he said, hey, that wouldn't be no problem for you playing point guard here. And that's basically how I ended up at Central.
What was the transition like?
The transition, I mean, one thing for sure is that I was in Ohio versus Savannah, so it was cold. And I'm not really a fan of the cold at all. It was snowing a lot. That was definitely a huge transition for myself and adjusting to the weather for sure. But other than that, on the court stuff, basically Central State, they weren't a winning program. So I was coming from winning a championship to going to probably the first or second last place team. So that was one of the biggest shifts, trying to change all the mindsets of the people there and, trying to get us going in that direction. And I had a lot of young guys there as well. That whole season, we probably started 3 freshmen most of our games. So trying to be a leader there in that aspect. And, those were some things that I had to deal with in my transition.
What were the highlights of your time there?
My highlight there, I would say, would have to be scoring that 1,000-point where I was at Central State. So this was my junior year. I ended up scoring my 1,000-point against Spring Hill, and I'd say that was definitely a highlight because, like I said, 1,000 points in college. I mean, that's not really a high feat that a lot of people have. So when I did it, I had my family there. I had people in the crowd. They had like 1,000 point signs and stuff. So it was just a great moment, and I think we actually won that game too. So I feel like that was probably one of my highest moments at Central State.
What challenges did you face while attending Central State?
The challenges I probably faced were, like I said, just building a young team and working on my leadership. We had a lot of young guys, different mindset guys having to, I'm the new guy coming in. Some people wanted to look at me like, hey, I know, I know a couple of the freshmen that always tell me like, oh, we had Marcus Scott coming in. We got the SIAC MVP. Like, we should be good this year. But, we ended up not having that good of a year. So that was definitely something that I had to, get through. Just figuring out ways, hey, how can I help this team? How can I help these young guys to, be better in themselves? So that really was kind of how I look at that year. Just a year of just mental development as far as not even really on the court, but just off the court, just talking with guys, trying to build chemistry and just, trying to be better.
And what was the reason for leaving Central State?
So the reason for leaving Central State, basically, so that was my junior year, and going into my senior year, that would have been my last year of eligibility. So I actually called my Savannah State coach, and I told him, I was like, I'm thinking about entering the portal, and his advice to me was, if this your last year, I would say if you're looking to play an NBA or a pro or something, you would probably need to go to a PWI, just for the high level of competition. So when I heard that from him, I said, hey, you're right. It was definitely a smart advice, and thankful for the advice. So I ended up entering the portal and did exactly what he said. So I went to the MIAA, which is one of the toughest conferences, if not the toughest, in D2 basketball. They had Northwestern, Missouri State, if I'm saying that right, that Trevor Hutchinson went to. They won the championship the last, 4 out of 7 years, probably in D2. So it's a pretty tough conference, and that's why I left. I just wanted to play in the toughest conference and hope that playing in a tougher conference would help me for when pro scouts are looking at me.
And why did you choose Northeastern State as your next school?
Choosing them kind of was just, I just looked into, the area. I was in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. It was different. And I mean, I really thought I connected with the coaching staff. So they offered me, and I talked to him, and he seemed like a good guy. And I was like, this seems like a okay fit. There was one of, I think maybe like 3 other offers I had. So at that time, I was like, I think they're the best offer. It fits the exact system of what I was saying with my coach Bronex, which is play in the highest D2 conference. So when they were the only one in that conference to offer, I said, hey, this would be the spot for me. So that's where I went.
And what challenges did you face while attending Northeastern State?
So growing up, I really never had injuries. I've always been blessed to be injury free. So I would say the challenge I had was the 6th game, I think, I got injured. So it was actually a season-ending injury, which I never dealt with in my life. So dealing with that was definitely a huge thing for me at Northeastern State. So I couldn't play the rest of the season. I had to, watch practices on the side. I had a boot on. It was very tough for me, especially, like I said, off the court. I'm just a competitive guy. So just having to watch practice and watch games and stuff and not be able to be out there, that was very tough mentally for me. And just having to get through that injury was definitely tough. And then, like I said, throughout that, I would, watch practices and stuff, and just had a lot of other stuff going on. Like one of my roommates I had, they were, I'm not really a smoker or anything, but they would like, smoke in the room and stuff, and just trying to get that figured out and talking to my coach about it. Hey, can we fix this? And my coach, saying he was going to fix it, but it never got fixed. And then now everybody's turning on me like I'm the bad guy because I didn't want to be in a room where somebody was smoking. I do educational stuff, and the smoke was kind of getting in my clothes and stuff, but just stuff like that. I mean, not getting fixed and then having to deal with that the rest of the school year. And I just felt like I was kind of unheard and kind of, pushed to the side by the coaching staff. So that was a lot. That was some stuff I had to deal with there. And then it kind of escalated as I got even worse. And I just feel like this is something that, a lot of athletes have these type of stories, but they're never really heard for some reason because I don't know, maybe they're afraid to, put out the game on like how college life really is, but that's kind of what I'm here for. Basically, I had a situation with my coach that he had basically trying to trick his way into taking my scholarship away, and it like had to go to the board and all this type of stuff. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the board and the meeting, obviously it got adjourned to where it was in my favor and I kept my scholarship. But I literally had texts of my coach telling me, "Hey, I'm taking your scholarship because of this," and he's trying to perceive me as something that I wasn't. I remember even one time, now, like I said, I got injured. This is probably February. I got injured in like September, November, and I would still go to practices. No, no problems. And I remember one time I walked into practice and he literally told me, "Hey, you're not allowed to come to practice." So in front of everybody, I mean, I'm sure my buddies from Northeastern could watch this and testify, but he told me I'm not allowed to come to practice. So just dealing with stuff like that, I mean, you would never even think that, a coach you been with would do that to you, but it happens. So and that was kind of something that he tried to tactically do because technically for you to take somebody's scholarship, they have to quote unquote quit. And if you're not coming to practice, a coach could use that against you and say that you quit, but there's really no proof because they didn't have it recorded or whatever. That they told you not to come. So just dealing with stuff like that, having to get through that and make sure my name is straight and all of that was definitely some stuff I felt I had to deal with at Northeastern State, which ultimately led me to finding another spot. I was able to get my year back due to medical red shirt. I got that approved within the MIAA. So I got hurt, got that year back, and was able to think about, where I'm going to finish my actual final senior year at.
And why did you choose Fort Valley to do your final senior year?
Fort Valley. So Fort Valley is also another school that is in the SIAC. So this would be my third SIAC school. Honestly, looking back, I mean, I could have went to Savannah State, but for me, I just, really one thing I was chasing was I wanted to be the first person ever in the SIAC to win a championship at two different schools. So the coach at Fort Valley State, he was connected with the coach at Liberty High School. They were teammates in college at JUCO. So I would work out with the Liberty High School team during the summer and sometimes in the spring. And when I was working out with him, he would talk to that coach, and the coach at Fort Valley State would call me a lot, and I just felt like he really wanted me there. And I remember I went on my visit, and it was a pretty good visit. I told him why I was leaving Savannah State and why I left all the schools I was at, and he understood, and he said he still rock with me. So I ended up going to Fort Valley, and that's where I finished up my last year.
And how was your experience there compared to all your other schools?
My experience there, we could talk about both sides, on the court and off the court. So on the court, it was, I mean, honestly, I felt like it was the average HBCU experience as far as just dealing with a lot of like not really your standard protocol stuff. So I'd say basically just dealing with teammates and a lot of like it was kind of the same stuff, I guess, like jealousy and we had a lot of different fights and stuff even in practice, and I just felt like that wasn't normal, but it was definitely some stuff we had going on there. And off the court, I felt like everything was just kind of slow, like with my uh just my process and enrolling in school and getting my classes together. It kind of took a long time. So that was kind of long. But I mean, all in all, like I said, I did get my master's degree from there. So in the end, it did work out good. And then I did sign pro out of Fort Valley's opportunity. So I think it still played out good.
What was the toughest part about transferring multiple times?
The toughest part about transferring multiple times would have to be just, like I said, being misunderstood. I feel like people didn't really know the reasons I would transfer from each school. So they'd think I was just doing it out of spite or something like that. But like I said, the ultimate goal was just to play professionally. And each school I transferred from had their own reason, legit reasons. So I feel like I said, just being misunderstood, I feel like was definitely something that people thought when I transferred a lot.
What do you think people most misunderstand about being a transfer student, especially athletics wise?
I think they think that you just automatically just will end up somewhere. I remember being on Twitter and looking at the different transfer portal pages and stuff, and they would always talk about it was this much a high number of people entered the portal, and then it was also a high number of people that didn't get a school after they entered the portal. So just the process of just finding another school, I feel like is underrated. For me especially, with my father's guidance, I would literally drive to schools and talk to their coaches, like unexpected. Like I would literally drive to the nearest schools in my state or even the nearest state. I would drive there and find a gym and basically ask the coach, "Hey, I'm interested in your program. Um, what do I need to do to be on your team?" So I feel like that's definitely some stuff that a lot of people don't think that they need to do, but that's what you got to do if you want to be on their program. So I say just doing stuff like that is something that people don't really think about when they think about transferring schools.
Through all the setbacks, what pushed you to keep going forward?
Basically, just my belief in myself, and just my support system, and just the hard work that I knew that I had, and the just the career that I was building. I mean, I feel like if I'm able to do all of this at my height, my size and stuff like that, why would I stop? So even though I had setbacks, I was like, just keep pushing, and then God to place something better in my position. So that's basically what it was, just having faith.
Let's get into your accomplishments. You scored over 1,500 points, won MVPs, and set school records. What moment stood out the most for you?
I definitely say the SIAC championship stood out the most for me, simply because, like I said, I was born in Savannah, Georgia, the hospital there, being able to do it for Savannah State, my first alma mater. Um, just the moment that it was before the game, I was with my family, my stepmom, my sister. Uh, it just was a wholesome moment. Actually, that game also the men's and women's team both played in the championship, so it was the same two teams for the women's and men's championship. It was Benedict and Savannah State women's championship and Benedict and Savannah State men's championship. So it was just a special year, and just the fact that we won, and just looking back on that moment and all the stuff we went through, I feel like that was definitely my favorite moment.
How did you balance being a scorer and a true floor general?
Basically, like I said, growing up, I was kind of just always a true floor general, and then getting to Savannah State, and my coach wanted me to score a lot. It just basically I just did whatever my coach needed me to do. So balancing it was based off of how my coach expected me to do what they needed me to do. So if he needed me to score, then I couldn't really balance it with just passing because some coaches wouldn't want me to pass. So I do what they need me to do. But just balancing it, I say, is just reading the defense, and if somebody commits and the guy's open, pass it. If they don't, then I got an open lane. So just really growing and watching the game and reading the defense and just making the right decisions is how I balance it.
What do you think your college stats say about you as a player?
Um, I think my college stats say to me as a player is, just a guy that, worked hard. I mean, if I looked at anybody else, especially looking at the whole overall aesthetics of the person and what they went through, I definitely say that that person, they have perseverance and they went through a lot, and they definitely was in the gym late nights and putting up a lot of shots and doing different stuff that, you know, the average person that didn't really trying to achieve a lot wouldn't do. So I say they definitely, had perseverance and just worked hard.
You've hit some clutch shots in your career. What was your mindset behind those game-winning shots, and which one meant the most?
Um, yeah, I did definitely hit a lot. I probably hit like maybe it's on YouTube, but I think it's like nine, 9 game winners in my life. And I feel like that's definitely something that, helps me be different than a lot of people. Some NBA players that probably never even hit, 5 in their life. So for me to hit 9 in my whole career, I think I've been blessed to be able to do that. Basically, my mindset I could just remember for each one. It's kind of similar to this one, the Elite Eight at Brunswick High School. I can remember before the shot happened, it was our point guard at the time, Daquan Humphreys. Uh, he had the ball, and right before we went out to the timeout, I told him, I said, "Hey, if they come at you, you got me in the corner. I'll knock it down for you. I got you." So that's actually exactly what happened. He had the ball. The play was drawn up for him, but they came at him, basically sent like 2 people at him. I was wide open in the corner and drove baseline and made the shot. But that's basically how most of my game winners have been. And funny enough, that I don't think none of the game winners that I hit were actually drawn up for me. So all of the game winners that I had mostly were like drawn up for another person. It just, ended up in my hands and I just made the play.
Is there one game or one performance that stamped who you are today?
Um, one game or one performance. No, I wouldn't say it's one game. No, not really. I just say it was just a cultivation of all the games, really. From little league up to, even college. I definitely say it was all of them. So I couldn't really pick one, but they all were definitely special.
How did all the adversity affect your mental health?
I'd say that adversity affect my mental health and just the way that I had to consistently just keep getting over, the doubts and, people telling you, hey, you might need to do this or you might need to do that. Um, it definitely affected it a little bit. Just, were some times that like, hey, dang, is this really for me? But I just, instilled the confidence that I got from my father. He went through a lot as well, but just seeing how he went through some stuff and just never got phased by it. If anybody knows him, they know that he didn't really care about anything about other people's opinions. So just watching him do that, I feel like, hey, if he's able to do that, I shouldn't let it affect my mental health. So I was able to stay locked in from watching his example of that.
Was there ever a time that you truly considered walking away from the game?
Um, no, I don't think it was ever a time I actually really said, "Hey, I'm gonna be done playing basketball." I don't think it was one like that. I mean, it's definitely been sad moments, but I don't think I ever actually said, "Hey, I'm actually done with basketball." I think I just, always had that confidence that, hey, this is a setback, but I could look forward to next year to make sure something happens great the next time.
And what pulled you through your darkest moments?
What put me through my darkest moments really is just having time to myself and just learning to be by myself. I feel like each time I had a dark moment, I could just remember, you know, for example, my last high school game, I can remember exactly how it was when we lost, and I drove all the way home. It was like an hour ride home to be with my dad that night, and I literally drove home with no music for an hour. So just being by myself and just thinking in my thoughts, I feel like I just learned to cope with it by myself. So throughout my darkest moments, just being by myself and listening to my thoughts and talking to myself, having positive feedback.
Do you think players talk enough about the mental side of this grind?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, like I said, for some reason, it seems like it's kind of ignored in today's social media world. But mental health definitely plays a huge part in an athlete's journey. As we can see, is a lot of different situations in the NFL, NBA, where mental health has affected a person, but it's definitely not talked about as much as it should be because people say, I mean, the game is like, 90% mental, 10% physical. So I could definitely see why people say that. I mean, if you think you're going to do something, then, you'll probably do it. And that's kind of played into my game winners as well. I mean, there was no really game winner where I said, hey, I'm nervous about this. I always said, hey, I'm gonna just go ahead and make this shot. And then when I made it, it happened. So it's just really the mental aspect of just having confidence in yourself and not getting too down on yourself and just having people that you could, fall back on, communicating with your coach, communicating with your parents. So if you're ever having a mental problem, you'll have somebody by your side.
You graduated with a 3.8 undergrad and a 4.0 master's. How did you manage that while hooping?
Um, I would definitely say just going back to the Air Force Academy, it basically prepped me to be able to do that stuff. Just the structure I learned, like I said, the Air Force Academy had people that were, the smartest of the smartest. So I was basically learning from them on how they, were able to achieve high academics. And I took what they did and applied it to myself. So we would literally have certain times throughout the day that we would study. It was then different study habits and different study techniques that they would do. And I just transferred that over to the schools that I transferred to. And like I said, the Air Force Academy is like Harvard type academics. So the HBCUs aren't Harvard type academics. So with that being said, if I transferred those things over to a HBCU atmosphere, it kind of made it a lot easier, and that's kind of why my grades were so good.
You finally suited up as pro. What did that moment mean to you?
Um, yeah, that moment meant a lot. Just like I said, being, paid to play basketball, is doing something I always wanted to do. I mean, it felt like a good moment. It's what I've been working for all my life. Growing up, I didn't really think of anything else I wanted to do. It was actually kind of hard. People always say, "What's your backup plan? What's your backup plan if you get injured? What's your backup plan?" This, but I never really could think of anything that I actually would want to do other than play basketball. So, with that being said, being able to play pro and actually being able to, that was the living I was making. I mean, it felt good because, all the people that, like you said, doubted me and, you know, have a backup plan this. I'm like, okay, I'm in this position where, it all paid off. So they just felt good.
What's something that fans or even casual hoopers don't realize about the professional level of basketball?
I would say they don't realize that um, the mental aspect plays a lot into it. Especially depending on the level of professional basketball. You might have, a game every other day. You're traveling. Traveling is definitely something that a lot of people don't really realize, especially like if you get into the higher levels. You're traveling, playing every game. You might get jet lag. Even if when I'm going overseas, traveling all across the other side of the world by myself. Um, some overseas leagues they don't give you pay on time. I mean, we've all heard the stories of different overseas encounterments, but it's just different when you actually are, the one dealing with that stuff. So I say those are the things that people really don't think about when it comes to the professional basketball aspect.
Let's get into what's next. How did it feel to be invited to the HBCU All Star Dream Classic?
I mean, it felt amazing. I didn't really think about it until I looked into it because, like I said, they said it was at Rucker Parker, which is the famous park in New York, Harlem, that all the NBA players played in, or most of them. And like I said, my favorite basketball player is Kobe Bryant. He played on that court. So just being able to play on that same court that he played on, I mean, it's a great feeling. They say you really haven't hooped until you played on that court. So me getting the chance to play there, I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I look to go there and represent well.
What does that opportunity mean to you personally and professionally?
It means a lot. Like I said, I mean, just the history that's on that court, me being able to be on the same, concrete or wood that different players have played on, it means a lot. And I'm just ready to do it.
What would you say to a player who's bounced around a lot and feels forgotten?
I would tell that player that they should just, really be locked in with themselves. Don't go into it if you don't believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then it's not going to work. You're going to get a lot of no's, but at the end of the day, the one yes is all that matters. To put it into perspective, there's it's like 30, 29 NBA teams. So if 29 NBA teams tell you no, but if one of them tell you yes, that's, league minimum, like $1 million in your pocket. So it don't really matter how many no's you get. Once you get that yes, it's going to be worth it in the end. So I just feel like just think of your end goal while you're doing it. That would be my advice.
What do you want your legacy to be, not just on the court, but as a man?
I say I want my legacy to be just somebody who, aspired to be different. Somebody who basically worked hard their life and, you know, aspiring to be different and got to where they wanted to be because of the stuff that they did. I definitely just say, like I said, just somebody who you look back and say, hey, that kid worked hard, and he inspired a lot of different people to do different stuff.
What's next for Marcus Scott? On the court, in life, and with your brand?
What's next for me right now? Like I said, just graduated with my master's in May, so I'm actually finished with college. A lot of people they would always ask me, "Hey, dang, how you still in college? You still playing?" Had different situations. Went prep. I had a medical red shirt, so basically 2 extra years. Then COVID, so basically kind of three. But I'm actually done this time, so now I'm actually able to go pro, and that's what's up for me right now. I got camps lined up. I just did a camp in Boston where I finished top 16 in the camp. Got a camp in Miami coming up, and then a camp in Vegas. So just different camps. Signed with an agency, so I'm happy to be with the agency and seeing what they set up for me. And as far as the brand, just looking to make it, statewide this year. I say that's one of my goals. Want it to be kind of like a normal household name in the state of Georgia. So building it to be that, and that's where I'm at right now.
If someone's watching this years from now, what message do you want to leave them with?
The message I want to leave with them is just believe in yourself. I say that's sounds cliche, but I mean I think the word and the tongue is powerful, and if you really believe in yourself every day and making sure that you're doing what you need to do and understanding the sacrifices that it takes to get to where you want to go, you'll be able to do what you want to do. I mean, time is not guaranteed. You definitely don't get time back. And if you're wasting your time, skipping stuff and not doing things the right way, you'll look back, 10 years later and wish you can get that time back, but you're not going to. So that would be, my advice to anybody watching this.
Tell us a little bit about your brand.
So yeah, my brand is Be Different. It started back in about 2020, I would say, right around when NIL kind of first got popping. I went to the NIL convention or NIL summit, and that's where the brand kind of idea had, revolved in my mind. Savannah State was able to offer me a position to go to the summit, and basically NIL is name, image, and likeness. And it was a bill that was proposed where athletes were now able to make money off of their name. So back in the day, they couldn't make money off of, their name and stuff. So when I went to that summit, I was basically around a lot of like minds that, were trying to make money off of their name. And some people already had stuff going on. So just being around all those people and making those connections, that's when I said to myself, I need to do this for me. My dad actually instilled it in me. He said, you need to first come up with, your slogan, then come up with your logo. And then from there, as I came up with those two things, it just started, happening. I started connecting with different people to help me with clothing and website and stuff like that. So that's basically how I got started, just from the NIL summit and the ideas there.
What made you be different, and how can others apply that in their life?
Um, Basically, I would say just knowing that you don't have to do the norm to get to where you want to go, especially if you want to go somewhere that's very, very high. You can't really do the average stuff. Like, for example, people might think they want to go to the gym and be a good shooter, but they want to, put up 50 shots a day. Like, that's not going to work. That's not being different. You would need to, as my dad would say, you put up like 1,000 shots a day. Like, that sounds bizarre, but that is actually a part of being different that you would need to do to reach your goals. So I would say just doing stuff like that. I mean, just not doing the average stuff, doing the bizarre stuff that will get you to where you need to go. That's what you could do if you want to be different.
What's your top 3 basketball moments in life?
Top three. Okay, so top one would definitely be winning the SIAC championship. The second one would be scoring the 1,000 point, and then the third moment would be signing pro.
I've asked you a lot of questions today. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to tell us?
No, I think we covered it all today. Like I said, really just today was really just about, letting the story be heard and just having people, understand a lot of stuff that goes on around the scenes of the basketball world that you might not, hear every day. But just inspiring people, like I said, to, if you got a dream, go for it. Don't let nobody doubt you, or don't let nobody tell you you can't do this, can't do that. You actually got to, believe in yourself. And I'm going to keep harping on that, because I really feel like that's something that if you actually do, you'll make a difference on yourself. And like I said, with the time thing, that's actually crucial as well. You don't get time back. I know I got a lot of, high school people that I've been connecting with. I've been, an educator and a professional player at the same time. But I see high schoolers all the time. High school is very, very young age. High schoolers in the building, they be saying they be getting old, but high school is very young. And like I said, you don't get that time back. It's a lot of people that wish they could have that time back. And while you're in high school, I would say just, make the most of it. You can get ahead of the world, whether that be finances or anything. Just make sure you're really locking into what you need to do, and you'll be ahead of the game.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. From overcoming transfers and setbacks and stepping into your purpose on the court and off the court, you've really shown us what it means to stay grounded, stay focused, and be different. To anyone that's listening and ever feels overlooked about your next steps, let Marcus's story be your reminder. Your path might not be everyone else's look, but that doesn't mean that it's any less powerful. That's it for today. Until next time.